Hello YouTube and welcome back to my channel. This is Terry and today I am going to do part 3 in my video series, which is simply called My Collection. More or less going from one end of the greenhouse to the other, from the east side of it to the west side. The east side being the more cooler side and the west side being closer to the heater. As in the last part, my last part 2, I just finished this section right here that's sort of divided by this humidifier right here, and this is the most easternmost part of my greenhouse, which gets, in the summertime, it gets probably the most heat, other than in the afternoon when the sun is at the west side, but this gets a lot of sun all day because it gets the early morning sun and it gets a lot of late evening sun as well. But and in the winter time, it stays a little bit cooler because it's the furthest point from the heater. Although this year I have put a little heater down there, which has made a really big difference. While I'm down here, this is a little bit more open than it was at my update in January, which I just put on YouTube last week. Anyhow, this is area coronaria. Here's a better picture of it. No real scent yet. Okay, so starting off on my part 3, I will move towards the windowsill. And as I was saying, I'm moving into a more intermediate section of my greenhouse. This has a little bit more shade in the middle part of the day. It does get a bit more of supplemental light from my LED that's here. There are no supplemental T4s as I have over here. But this side, as I said, it does get some shade in the middle part of the day, and it's protected from the afternoon sun because it's blocked by a lot of the plants that are high up, and just because it is in the shade. So it stays a little bit cooler, a little bit more intermediate here in the summertime. I have a few fans down there that keep the air circulation going, and that's about it. And as you can see, the temperature over here looks like, well, in the windowsill it says it's about 50, and it's about 65% humidity. So anyhow, I will start back down here. This is a recent acquisition. This is Dendrobium Pixie Charm 4N, which is a cross of yellow sandsai times unicum. So basically right now it is in its winter rest, and as you can see, it is in spike. It was bought in short spike, so I can't really take credit, but it is resting, and I will continue to rest it. I might actually begin misting it a little bit as the buds begin to form, but this is my first time having something that is a kind of an OVLA type in my collection for many years. I just kind of got fed up with them producing kikis and just not blooming for me really well. So, but this one is a nice one. This supposedly has pretty good fragrance and long-lasting flowers. Of course, hence the name. Well, they stay pretty small, but they are an orange, tangerine, with a similar scent. Moving over this way, this is a no ID Phalaenopsis that I've never cut these spikes off, and it's just pretty much stayed there. And I noticed there's a side spike coming off of this inflorescence, and I think there's another one somewhere else. But anyhow, and there's another one that's down there. It's not really doing much at the moment. Right here next to this is my Dendrobium Frosty Dawn, and it's not in dormancy. These plants never really go into dormancy. They do like to be watered year-round, just a little bit lessening in the wintertime. It is not a deciduous orchid, so when you start to see yellowing of the leaves, it either means it's too cold or it is not getting enough water. It needs to be misted. This group of Dendrobium is a member of the Formosae section, also called the Negro hirsute Dendrobium, because of the tiny black hairs that are all along the stem. Yeah, you can kind of see it right there. And supposedly they are on the other side of the underside of the leaves, but I don't really see any on mine. But yeah, you can see the black hairs right there really well. This produces a cream to white flower that is very small, very long lasting on the stem. They do bloom from the nodes. As you can see, these are the spent flowers from last year. And it does have a fragrance at certain parts of the day. I noticed it when it was flowering for me, generally in the early morning hours only. And it does have some orange in the lip, a very vibrant orange in the lip. As I said, it's a very long-lasting flower. Anyhow, moving on next is my, well, I don't know what the tag is, but I believe this is Melipoense Pathopedilum. This has been in recovery. When I got this plant, it did not have any roots, and so the bloom spike never really happened. And so since it has been repotted, and it's probably been in this potting mix for probably a year now, it did produce a new fan that seems to be pretty healthy. So, and I also put some little mixture of some lime and water and made a little paste and stuck it there so it gets a little slow release extra lime, because these plants hail from the southwestern provinces of China. Well, not the southwest and southeast provinces actually, and sometimes across the border in northern Vietnam, limestone cliffs. So plants should be kept pretty warm, shady and humid during the growing season, which is spring and summer. During the winter months, plant should be kept on the cooler side, which is why it is sitting in the window, very close to the window, and much drier, allowing the plant to dry out as a succulent would dry out. Sorry for the light that the LED is casting, but that's just how it is. Okay, moving on up this way. This is, well, I'm gonna have to take it down because the light is shining right in my eye. This is my Dendrobium tetragonum. These orchids come from northern Queensland and New South Wales. As a cool to warm growing, small to medium sized epiphytic species from humid forests at low altitudes. For me, I've noticed that it likes a little bit more shade, and it does not like to be watered. For me, in the spring, when this plant is producing its new growth, it is very susceptible to rot. So you need to be careful to water it if you have one. I've just recently mounted this. I did have it potted up. It wasn't doing much of anything, although it did try to bloom. These bloom as long as you can see the tips of the pseudobulbs where it blooms from. As long as you can see that it's green and viable, it's possible that it may rebloom from those old spent spikes. So it is hanging in there, just trying, but it is slowly recovering. I'm still trying to figure it out myself, actually. As I said, it is very finicky for me, but it does prefer to be mounted. It does prefer to dry it in between waterings, and for me, it seems to want a dry period. So, if anyone has any tips on how to grow that tetragonum, that is the giganteum form, I would greatly appreciate it. Next to this, pull it down. This is actually my Dockerilla collection that I'm going over right now. This is Dockerilla cucumberina. It's also found, it's also native to Queensland, Australia, basically as a miniature cool to hot growing epiphyte, found near water courses, on rivers, at sea level. Produces the flowers in late winter and spring that are cream colored and generally red striping along the petals. And let me set this down to get a better picture of it. It's doing okay. It does like less water in the wintertime. I don't miss this every day as I do in the summer, probably 2 times a week, and it's doing okay. It's mounted to this piece of wood, and it's slowly going around the side of it. So hopefully I'll be seeing some blooms soon. Okay, and this one next to it, this one is also a Dockrilla. This is Dockrilla torresi. This is found in northern Queensland as well, on trees and shady rocks. At sea level, hot to cool growing lithophyte, produces spikes from the newly formed leaf, which is very small, very miniature, as you can see. I had a lot of winter dieback last winter, as you can see kind of right in here. I was more diligent and have been more diligent this winter, and I'm keeping it more wet than I have been in previous winters, and I can see lots of new growths in there. Like right, this is all new growth. That's right, all of the light color is new growths. So I think I'm gonna just keep watering this throughout the winter and not give it a dry rest, because last winter I lost a lot of it. Yeah, I lost some that was in here too. But yeah, it seems to be doing okay with more water. The flower on these it's a little flower. It's a yellow glossy flower. I'm not sure if it has a fragrance or not. That is Dockrilla torresi. Then, sorry for the camera. Then another Dockrilla that I have, this one right here, Dockrilla, well, Dendrobium lechinastrum, Gold's Country. Again, lots of roots on the mount. Lechinastrum is also from Queensland, Australia. Queensland, Australia, and forests, and also in forests off of the sea and forests, rainforests. So it does get a lot of moisture in the growing season. Although in the wintertime it should be getting less moisture, although it does get some misting in the early morning hours and in the late evening hours. So I still water this, or not water this, but I missed it. And there are some new growths still. There's some right there, and there's another one right there. So it's doing okay. Lechinastrum. Tongue orchid. No, that's linguiformis, which I don't have. Okay, moving on down. This right here. Actually, let me start up here. I kind of went over this plant on my last update. This is my Dendrobium harveyanum, and as I noted, I'm just got this plant last year, and it is, you can see the canes are a little desiccated. I was had recently mounted it on this piece of corks that I made the mount out of from wine corks, and some of the new growths did not look so strong, or they blasted, as these down here, these were all sort of attempts at new growths. So I backed off on the watering, and anyhow gave it have been giving it a dry rest, as is what you're supposed to do, I think. And it does have some new growths coming down there. Whether or not they're growths or whether or not they are spikes, I will see. Whatever they are, it is something going on, and I'm pleased nonetheless. There's another one somewhere else. I believe it's right there. So, and it is actually attached to my Bobophyllum Lovely Elizabeth, which is a cross between the ever popular Bobophyllum Elizabeth Ann times Rothschildianum. So it will have a long inflorescence extending out with a teardrop sort of on an umbral shaped maroon, maybe some striping on the flower. Very striking, unique flower. I've got it kind of still on its mount that it was on, but sat that inside of a basket with new media. It has some new growths that that it produced over the summer, so it's doing pretty good. Right next to this is my Schomburgkia ludimania, and this plant is recovering. As you can see, this is the latest growth. Before that, it had a blooming growth that actually bloomed for me, and then before that, it had this growth which aborted itself. So for me, I think it's still recuperating, or there was actually a growth in between here that I had to pull out because it blasted. So it is recovering. There was a growth in between the bloom and this one. So, but I am looking forward to this. Needs highlight situation, warm conditions, long spike, formerly in the Laelia alliance, long spike with little frilly flowers, colorful at the end. I think they're dark. Okay, and on up this way, this is a new acquisition. This is my BLC, let me just pull the tag. This is another Schomburgkia cross. This is Schomburgkia undulata times BLC Fortune Magic Gold. And like I said, this is a recent acquisition, so it's kind of just sitting up in this pot. It is hanging high up. Did have a spike that had a flower on it that bloomed, and it has another pseudobulb that is in sheath. So with a lot of roots that are hanging down, I will probably repot this plant once I start seeing it produce some new growth. But this likes highlight, Cattleya of course, light, and right now I would consider it to be in a little bit of a rest, so I'm not watering it all that much, maybe once every 10 or 14 days. Right next to this is my mule's ear Oncidium. Well, it's probably not an Oncidium anymore, but it's Splendidum, and it's got some active root tips. Put out this growth over the summer, but then it put out this little bitty, I don't know, it still needs to get a lot bigger before its bloom size. I believe the leaf can be 3 feet long and will produce a very sturdy spike of very heavy substanced, you know, kind of typical dancing lady flowers, but in darker shades of orange and brown, something like that. And it is just recently mounted last summer on this piece of wood, and it's doing okay. It has attached itself. And these are the latest round of roots that are coming out. Down below here, I have 2 kikis that I got in a auction, actually at the Botanical Gardens in St. Louis last spring. This one, they were both Moats orchids. These orchids were $5. This is Vanda Hiroshima Choice, which is Vanda falcata times Vanda flabellata. Like I said, these are just babies. Actually, these are probably just kikis. And then this one is a little bit bigger, but this is Vanda well, I'm not going to say that. Mary Moats, which I believe is the really dark one. Maybe two-tone darker lip with a very sort of dark lilac edging around the lip. I believe. Anyhow, I'm happy to have those and was shocked that they were only $5. So I just have them potted up into these little net pots, and I mist their roots every day till they're green. It is attached to this division that I bought on eBay. This is a division of Dendrobium moscatum. Dendrobium moscatum is a dendrobium that is first of all, they are native to the Himalayas, Western Himalayas, and Bangladesh, also the Hunan, China, Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. This plant, although this is just a kiki, these plants get to be very massive with sometimes 2 to 3 feet canes that produce flowers after a dormant period in the spring that are very beautiful along the stem of the previous season's growth, and can be very fragrant, musky scent. So even though it is reputed to be a humongous plant, I'm still somehow finding room for it to be in my greenhouse. This goes outside in the summertime where it gets some shade. In the winter, I just have it. It's technically supposed to be dormant, but I know that the mist that I give these little vandas seedlings are getting into the plant, and I'm not sure whether or not this cane, I mean, it looks really bad, although the kiki that is down here looks okay. So in any event, I will have some of this plant regardless of whether or not this stem makes it or not. So I'm kind of relieved about that. Down below here are some of my Paphiopedilums that I picked up this last year. This is my Paph Lady Isabel, which is one of my most favorite crosses. It's basically Paph Stony Eye times Rothschildianum. Stony Eye being a Paphiopedilum that is multifloral. It's basically a hot-growing terrestrial from Borneo. It's found on limestone cliffs at sea level to moderate altitudes, and they bloom in the summer on erect stems with the most unusual white with brown striping. It's just a beautiful flower. I really love it. And the cross with Rothschildianum just makes it so much of a special flower. So that's that. Next to that is Paph Prince Edward of York times Stony Eye. So Prince Edward of York is Paph Sanderianum, which Sanderianum is a multifloral, which has the long petals that can sometimes be several feet long, and that is crossed with Rothschildianum, and then it is crossed with Stony Eye. So again, it's got a lot going on in there that I like. Prince Edward of York again is another one of my favorite multifloral hybrids. So that crossed with Stony Eye is just something of a delight. Then in front of here, this is my Paph Chewy Hua Dancer, which is Gigantifolium times Sanderianum. So it'll be a large sized flower with multifloral with long petals from the Sanderianum with twisted long petals. So another special Paphiopedilum. I'm going to go over this way. There's a little mini Cattleya in here. This is my Bouton d'Or, BLC, I believe. This is a very old Cattleya. What do you call it? It's a heirloom, I would say. Maybe that's not the proper term, but it's an old variety. Has been crossed, used as a parent for many different crosses. And as you can see, this is last season's growth. There was a sheath in there, and actually it might still be in there. I just can't focus in on it so well. Maybe you can see the sheath in there. But there is another new growth that is coming down at the bottom, so I'm pretty happy about that. This did bloom last spring. Next to that is my Angraecum sesquisquadale. It's just growing. It didn't really produce a flower. Didn't produce a flower at all. I can't say didn't really, because it didn't produce a flower at all. So it's just growing. It's still healthy. I mist it every day, the roots, and make sure I keep on the watering, because it does like to be watered. Behind there is my Dendrobium aggregatum, which is my bag baby that I got, and it was a recent repot. It had a really rough summer, but there are some roots in that pot, and it is recovering pretty good. I'm giving it a dry rest, as is what you're supposed to do, and a dry cooler rest. In the summer it goes outside and gets fairly high light. Next to this is another half cross that I have. This is half Lucille Booth, which is Lady Isabel times Primulinum. So again, this is Lady Isabel down here, which is my favorite Paphiopedilum multifloral, which has the white flower and the dark striping from the stony eye in it. So this has that crossed with Primulinum, which is a yellow flower. This has not bloomed for me yet, so it is getting to be a bigger size, though almost balloon size, I would think. And right next to this is I got this last year. This is my Paph Armeniacum, and I had to put it in this spike because the babies are produced, and they are produced on a long rhizome, so they are produced out from the sides along the top of the media instead of as usual. So you have to repot these plants in a wide pot, as big as possible, because it will definitely fill this pot up. I can see, because these are the babies that are a significant ways away from the mother plant, which is this, and it'll just keep progressing further out. So this did have a spike last year, but it aborted when the flower was just about to bloom. In front here is a bulbophyllum. This is my bulbophyllum auratum of the world. This is a bulbophyllum that is a miniature. I got that from Wade's Orchids. This produces not pseudobulbs. It produces inflorescence from the base, and the flowers are produced in an umbral, perfect circle, yellow flower. I think they do have a little bit of fragrance to it. A very pleasing flower. It is a miniature. I'm going to repot that pretty soon because it seems like it's stalled. It hasn't really done anything since I got it. Right next to this is a plant that I got at auction at the Missouri Botanical Gardens. This is an Aria. This is Aria hyacinthoides. Big blooming size division. It's just kind of hanging out here, likes intermediate conditions, likes to be moist throughout the year. I should be seeing some bloom spikes. This is the new growths that are from last year, and there are some growths that have already matured as this growth. So I should be seeing some inflorescence pretty soon. The spikes look almost like hyacinths, although they are in clusters, erect clusters. They are only white. They aren't the colors of a hyacinth, but the flowers do resemble the hyacinth, only a miniature. What are those other little hyacinths called that are not technically the big fat hyacinths, the smaller ones? I can't remember what they're called, but the flowers are closer resembling of those, and the flower does not smell like a hyacinth, I might add. The fragrance is not a pleasing fragrance. Next to this is my bag baby of my Dendrobium spectabile, which is kind of just hanging out here getting some light from the LED. It's not really doing much of anything, although there is a new growth down there that I just noticed. So I am probably going to try to give this a little more light, maybe raise it up, maybe hang it higher up in the greenhouse, because these do need a lot more light than what I'm giving it. To the left of here is one of my Angraecum superbum. It's just had a rough summer outside, just being beat up. Did produce a lot of roots that are in the pot. I just try to keep these roots moist every day, misting them. Next to this is my Schomburgkia. This is my Schomburgkia undulata. The latest growth is over here. It actually had a spike on it, but the spike aborted. As you can see, I think it got too cold one night in here. But I did notice there are some roots that are forming down there on the newest pseudobulb, so it's doing something. This is an old plant that has bloomed for me before. It does get a long spike with orange flowers at the end of that long 2 to 3 foot long spike. That takes forever to develop. Below that are 2 plants that I bought at the Illinois Orchid Society sale this year, which I am very happy to have. These are the names. Actually, I know what the name is. These are my Eulophias petersii. These are found in many areas of Africa and Saudi Arabia and Yemen. Basically, it is a medium to giant size, warm to cool growing terrestrial. Prefers it in sandy, rocky soil, in some shadier location, but it can take full sun. In the spring, after a dormant winter, generally from the tops of the pseudobulb, it'll produce a spike. I'm not sure. This is my first time having this plant, but the spike is produced from the top of the latest pseudobulb, and it can be perhaps up to 3 to 4 feet tall, with between 30 and 200 flowers that are all very fleshy, and they're white with brown in them, and they have that musky scent to them. So I'm hoping that I can keep these over the winter and see how they progress in the spring and the summer of this coming year. So the new acquisition, one of my most prized new acquisitions. Right next to this is my new acquisition as well. This is my Bulbophyllum crosspoint, which, let me see here, get the tag. It's a cross between Rossachilianum and Frostii. So Frostii is the Bulbophyllum that looks like a little shoe. It is a very true miniature. Rossachilianum is the Bulbophyllum that looks like kind of a teardrop in an umbral. So very interesting flower it will be. There are new growths. I'm assuming those are new growths. It was a nice division. Again, I got my plants, these latest plants from Windy Hill Garden. They have really good prices and healthy plants. Look at all those roots. And right next to this is another Bulbophyllum that I got that actually has a new growth right there. This is also from Windy Hill Garden, and this is Bulbophyllum Mean Endless Love, which is Longissimum times bicolor. Another nice plant. Let me see. I'm gonna go ahead and mention these plants right here, and I'm gonna totally space out on who the parents are. This is the plant that I purchased in Rome. Well, I didn't purchase it in Rome. I actually purchased it in Sicily online from a nursery in Belgium, I believe. And this is an Angraecum cross. Hang it from here. The name of the cross is called Lady Lisa Rosemary. And if I remember correctly, it is a cross between Magdaleni and Scottianum, I do believe. And I love Scottianum. My Scottianum is right here. It's a Tourette style Angraecum that I have. It's just on this tree fern pole that is just sitting in this basket that is kind of in the basket. So it has two fans of it. But anyhow, that is my Scottiana, and over here is my Magdaleni. So I believe, and this is just a baby, but I do believe that that's what this is crossed with, and it is a previously bloomed plant. As you can see, there's a previous bloom spike. This, as I said, I got this, I ordered it when I was in Sicily this last fall and had it sent to the apartment that I was renting in Rome, and got it the day before I was leaving. So I was very thrilled that I received this plant, because it was, and then it was another getting it back into the States. So after consulting with several people on Orchaholics Anonymous and on Facebook group as to how to get it in the States, I put it in my checked luggage and wrapped it really well, and it survived, and it remains. It's not doing much, but I keep the roots misted in, this time of the year. I want to keep those roots moist as possible, so they don't get desiccated, because that's what sustains the plant. And hopefully we'll begin to see some new growths in a few months, or not new growths, but new fans from the top. Okay, so I'm pretty happy to see that. This was a hybrid that I had never seen before available anywhere in the States. And right next to this is another hybrid Angraecum that I have, primary hybrid. This is Cucullatum times Scottianum. And I've had this plant for several years. It's got lots of new growths on it. It's been mounted on this piece of wood for a while. And it blooms pretty regularly for me every year. You can see the spent flower spikes. It produces a white flower. If I can find a pic, I'll put it on here. But it's a very nice plant. I'm very happy to have it. As I said, my Scottianum, I showed it to you earlier, that's down there. I did have a Cucullatum a long time ago. Cucullatum is really a miniature. It's a small plant. And I just overwatered it and it quickly perished. But Cucullatum very closely resembles Vanda's type growth, very miniature, similar to this. I'll just mention this. I don't even know if this has a tag on it, but this Cattleya that all of these plants are kind of hanging on, this is a rescue Cattleya. Yeah, here's the tag. Actually, it's LC Betty Ford, York. So I won't say much about that. I've had this for some time, and as you can see, it's gone up and it's gone down. There are some latest growths on it that look a lot more sturdy, and that they are standing up towards the sky rather than bent over. So I do have high hopes for this plant. It goes outside in the summer underneath the arbor out there in shade. So as I said, I do have high hopes for this plant. I'm not sure what it looks like. And the last plant that I'm going to do today is this one that's right here. It's hanging high here. This is LC Alyssa something Compton. There's the title. There's the title. There's the name of the plant. Anyhow, I got this plant last year at Hauserman's. I do believe it is a red, very vibrant red Cattleya plant, and this is the newest growth. There is some growths from this summer that have sheaths in them, but there are no flowers yet. Not sure if I believe you can kind of see the sheath in there, maybe. But it is doing pretty well. Again, this is a nice, strong new growth. And up above here, I'll just go ahead and do this one. This is my Phalaenopsis cross. This is a Gigantea crossed with Kernuanum, and these spikes are from previous years, and when it blooms in the spring, the ends of the spikes just elongate and the flowers form. And it does produce new spikes every year. I'm going to have to cut these old spikes off. It is a nice deep red lilac flower. Does have some fragrance to it and some light striping in the petals and the lip. Nice thing to have. It has been mounted on this for a while, and I water it as I do my Gigantea that's down there at the other end. Lots of spikes on this that just stay. As long as they're green, they're going to bloom. And I will end part 3 right there. Again, let me one more thing, since I'm just reminded me, I've got this Sesquisquadale angraecum in my view. Let me point out this Sesquisquadale down here. This is the same plant, except this one is in spike, double spike, and as you can see, the flowers are beginning to form. I just wanted to show you that, and I will end my video right there. So if you like this video, press the like button. And sorry this video has been so choppy and it is so long, but again, enjoy your orchids. Thanks for watching.